Abraham and the Akedah as pictures of the Messiah in Torah. Shalom. Today we are going to examine the relationship and parallels of Abraham and Isaac to our Messiah, Yeshua. There are some striking similarities that are going to be presented today. We begin in Genesis 22:2. Then God said, "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on the mountain I will show you." The very first occurrence of the word love in the scriptures is found in this text, and it refers to Abraham's passion he has for his son Isaac, his only son. Isaac was the long-awaited heir, 100 years, Abraham's miracle boy, his only child of his beloved wife Sarah. Immediately, this is a picture of Messiah. We remember in the Gospel of Matthew at the baptism of Yeshua these words, Matthew 3:16 through 17. As soon as Yeshua was baptized, he went up out of the water. At that moment, heaven was opened, and he saw a Spirit of God descending like a dove and alighting on him. And a voice from heaven said, "This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased." The parallel ought not to be ignored. Yeshua is God's only Son, whom Hashem loved. This command to Abraham is foreshadowing the sacrifice of Yeshua to humanity and the cost of sacrificing an only beloved son. In Jewish tradition, the drama of the mind-blowing sacrifice of Abraham's beloved son is called the Akedah, or binding, which is universally regarded as the supreme test of Abraham's obedience and faith. This is also a picture of Messiah. When Yeshua was in the Garden of Gethsemane, he was tested with his faithfulness, knowing that the extent to which he would suffer. The extent of suffering are captured in these words recorded in Matthew 26:37 through 42. He, Yeshua, took Peter and 2 sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." Going a little farther, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will." Then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. "Couldn't you men keep watch with me for 1 hour?" he asked Peter. "Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." He went away a second time and prayed, "My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done." Much like Abraham, the gravity of what is about to occur is weighing heavily upon the heart of Yeshua. Instead of avoiding the situation or even questioning the situation, both men obey the will and command of God, which took much courage, strength, and faith to accomplish. It is important to note the Akedah, or binding, was such an important event to the Jewish people. The story is read each Sabbath morning in prayer services in synagogues throughout the world. It is also read during Rosh Hashanah, or the head of the year, since tradition says that Abraham sacrificed Isaac during this time. In this way, the Akedah represents the truth of the message of the cross of Yeshua the Messiah, and how God's attribute of justice was fulfilled by Yeshua offering his life for the people he loved. So the story of Akedah begins, Genesis 22:1. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, "Abraham, here I am," he replied. This opening verse sounds rather benign and understated until you add the ancient rabbinic thought behind this pivotal verse. After some 30 years of silence, yes, Isaac is over 30 years old at this time, living as a sojourner among the Philistines, God finally called to faithful Abraham, who simply answered, "Hinei ani," or "Here I am." What is remarkable about this Hinei ani is that it is Abraham's only recorded response to God's forthcoming request in verse 2 to sacrifice his only son. You will also note the silence of Yeshua when he is in front of Pilate. Matthew 27:11 through 14. Meanwhile, Yeshua stood before the governor, Pilate, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "You have said so," Yeshua replied. When he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate asked him, "Don't you hear the testimony they are bringing against you?" But Yeshua made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. Many have wondered why Yeshua was silent. Many have wondered why Abraham was silent. The silence was not a crisis of faith, but a certainty of faith within both these men. They both knew God and spoke with God. They both understood what God was requiring of them, and they both had no reason to question God. We are reminded of Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is confidence or certainty in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Abraham's and Yeshua's demonstrated faith did not trifle with the perception of reality unfolding before them. They were certain that the Lord would and could deliver them from what their human eyes did not see. There was no need to reply or defend the faith, but to demonstrate faith in the face of death. Finally, as Abraham and Isaac approach Mount Moriah, a full 3 days' journey, Abraham asks Isaac, "What do you see?" Isaac answered, "I see a lovely hill with a beautiful cloud rising above it." Abraham then asked the two servants traveling with them, "What do you see?" They replied, "We see nothing." Abraham then told his two servants in Genesis 22:5, he said to his servants, "Stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship and then we will come back to you." Notice Abraham's faith is in full force, even though he has had 3 days to understand he will have to sacrifice his only son. He had faith that God would resurrect his only son and he would return to his servants. Abraham believed that despite the coming sacrifice of his son, both of them would return. Luke 24:1-8. On the first day of the week, very early in the morning, the women took the spices they had prepared and went to the tomb. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they entered, they did not find the body of the Lord Yeshua. While they were wondering about this, suddenly 2 men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them. In their fright, the women bowed down with their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here. He is risen. Remember how he told you while he was still with you in Galilee, the Son of Man must be delivered over to the hands of sinners, be crucified, and on the 3rd day raised again." Then they remembered his words. Shalom.
Let Israel be glad in the Maker. Israel rejoice in the King. Israel be glad in the Maker. Israel rejoice in the King. She'll rejoice when Messiah comes.